Another Emic Trunkheart build coming up here for you guys. This time we're going to bring in Sir Nicholas. Now, I'm using Sir Nick. You can use a Warcaster. You can use a Tower. Anybody with a 4-turn cooldown and either block damage or unkillable ability should be able to work in this spot. But because of Emic, we can go at much, much slower speeds. It makes this so much easier, guys. Just so much easier. Anyway, let's get in it. Welcome, I'm the DeadwoodJedi. This is going to be another Raid Shadow Legends video. Again, we are on the test server looking at Emic Trunkheart because, again, we got another clan boss build here. Emic is so unique. Not only does it give you unkillable for 2 turns, but he also reduces the cooldown for all your allies by 1 turn. This makes us be able to do teams that we normally would have at much slower speeds because we don't have to get there with a lot of these champions. Basically, anybody that we had to build faster to be on a 4-turn cooldown, we now don't have to because we can, with that cooldown reduction, we can put them on a 3-turn cooldown and drop their speeds by about 70 or so, 70 to 60 speed. It's a crazy, crazy drop. It's really, really good. And so we're going to do that today. Now, the hard part with Emic is that because it's an unkillable ability, it's going to be very, very difficult to guide the stun to one person like you might do in a budget man-eater team or even in like a Hellcat team, right? Where he's the only one we need and we're relying on his shields to make the stun target work. It's not going to be that same way with Emic, and that's really the drawback. But if we have another unkillable champion, whether that's Warcaster, Tower, Sir Nicholas, or Hellcat himself, we can then make a team that works and they can go a whole lot slower. So that's what we're going to be doing today. Really excited about it. So let's go ahead and check it out. And if you guys like it, don't forget, hit that subscribe, hit that like button. Oh, and I should also remind you, this team, like all my teams that I do on my channel, is on the website. So make sure to go check that out, DeadwoodJedi.com. You'll be able to see the team right there. You can just look for Emic, Trunkheart. You can search for, one of the unkillable teams. It'll be there in the list, and it'll have all the directions, all the instructions, all the guidelines you need to be able to build this team on your own and avoid a lot of the pitfalls that otherwise you might run into. Okay, quick looking at the setup and the speeds that we got going on here. We've got Sir Nick, right, 172 speed. We're going to open with his A1, and then it's unkillable, and it's full auto from there, baby. Nice and easy. I turn off his A2 because it's not his hard as his A1, but it doesn't really matter. And Emic, 245 speed. That's really what we want, 245 so I think 248 or so. And basically, he's going to open up with his A3 ability and then use his A2. That's it. Full auto works really fine. This team will work on Nightmare as well as Ultra Nightmare, so you don't have to worry about that. It's just a little bit of the timing has to change with it, but it's very simple to make this team work. We've got Frozen Banshee. I'm bringing in all the rares for this one, right? Outside of our unkillable champions, I'm bringing in the rares, right? We got Frozen Banshee here, 174 speed. We've got Grave Chill Killer. Now, Grave Chill I have going fastest. The reason why is she will place a decreased defense. I want that placed before my other champions attack so they do more damage. This is generally how you want to do if you can afford to make those changes and those alterations. Do you have a decreased defense and weakened champion? You generally want them going at the top of your turn order. So somebody like a Rosin or a Ragnar or even a Draco, you generally want going higher in the turn order so when they place those debuffs, everybody else gets the benefit from it that goes after them. Just a simple thing that can make a big difference. But we have her pairs really well. Frozen Banshee gives us that decreased defense and extra poisons as well. And then very last, we have Seducer. Now, Seducer is one of my favorite champions out there, but I rarely get to use him because he has a block debuff ability on a 4-turn cooldown. It lasts for 2 turns. He's the only rare champion that has a 2-turn block debuff ability, but it's a 4-turn cooldown, and oftentimes it's very hard to build them fast enough to be able to use that regularly because generally you need to be about 240 speed. Well, thanks to Emic, I don't have to worry about that. I don't have to worry about it at all because he's going to reduce that cooldown, so now it becomes a 3-turn cooldown, and I can run him all the way down at 171 speed. This is clutch for us. Now, how do you want to make this team work for yourself? Well, you need Emic at that fast 245 speed, right? Everybody else gets to be like under 175, except for one. You need one champion going faster. In this case, it's Grave Chill Killer. It's like 185 to 188 speed or 189 speed. You need to have them in that kind of a range. I think 187 to 189 is best for affinity friendly stuff. So if you wanted to bring in a cleanser like a Doom Priest, you could do that at that speed. And that's typically how this team is run. You might know this team traditionally is known as like the Tower Skull Crusher team, right? The slow Tower Skull Crusher or the slow Hellcat team, right? But it's going to work just fine like this. And we have Seducer going slowest at 171. And then we have Sir Nick at 172, Frozen Banshee 174, and then a Grave Shield, like I said, faster at 185, 187. And Seducer's going to be able to block the debuff, so we don't have to worry about affinity. We don't have to worry about the stun. It's great. Now, it's not a heavy damage team because we're relying almost entirely on the poisons from Grave Chill and Frozen Banshee for damage. That is a limitation here, so just kind of keep that in mind. But it does a pretty good job. So as we get in here, you can see we open with that unkillable ability, and then we just go to town. We get the decreased defense going from Grave Chill, and everything goes nice and smooth. We're going to just kind of let that unkillable last for the second turn, and then right before the stun, Sir Nick is going to go ahead and place his unkillable just to make sure nobody can die. And that's basically it. I think Emic took the stun there, which is problematic. Oh, we're going to have to do this again, aren't we? Okay, so as we get in here, there's going to be a couple interesting things. First off, you notice Emic opens with his A1, not his A3 like I showed in the setup. That's because there's an issue. When you use block debuff like I'm doing with Seducer, he also brings an increased defense buff. So unless you are lucky enough to have a Brogni or a Blind Seer or somebody that puts up block debuff but no increased defense, chances are you're not going to be able to full auto often, right? Now, if I'm just going against Void, like I am right now, I could full auto and just make sure to block the debuff on the stun. I could use a Grizzled Jarl for that, for crying out loud, or basically anybody that just has a one-turn block debuff, right? But that's not the case this time, because obviously we're about to put up the block debuff, but also going to have the increased defense. And the problem is on this turn right here, Seducer's going to go, and then Emic goes after. Every other turn, Seducer goes last, but this is the one turn where Emic is going to go after Seducer, and that's going to really mess up the timing, because when the stun comes, Emic won't have block debuffs on, because he won't have increased defense either, and because the clan boss likes to avoid increased defense, he's going to try and stun Emic. That's the issue here. So, how do we deal with this? Well, I'm going to deal with it this way, by manually making sure not to use his A3 until after the stun, right? And then we'll be in fully sync. The other way to do it, if I'm going against Void, I could just block the stun itself, right? Then I don't have to worry about it at all. Or I have somebody like a Brogni or whatever, or I have a cleanser like a Doom Priest, and Doom Priest is fantastic for this sort of thing. So that's definitely an option. But see, right here, I have to interrupt again. I'm going to use the A1, boom, and then everybody else, I should be able to full auto at this point, boom. Here comes the hit. There goes the stun. This first turn, he's just going to go through it. And then on the second attack, he's going to use the unkillable ability. This is normally where it would work out perfectly for us. But at this point, it doesn't matter. The big thing here is that Seducer is going to be able to block the debuffs. That's the important part. Nobody's dying this early, right? But we'll have the timing now for the unkillable ability to come back around and hit at the right time. There was a stun. Here goes his first attack. And here should be, there we go, unkillable. We're unkillable. We're good to go. It just takes a little bit of time to get into it. Turn 6, turn 7. That's when we're fully in sync. But you'll notice now, excuse me, we have unkillable the whole time, and we have block debuff up on everybody the full time. So it's affinity friendly. We don't have to worry about the stun. Don't have to worry about spirit affinity or anything like that. It works out really, really good. It's it gets a little bit, just getting it set up and running into it is the little bit tricky part. Typically you use a Doom Priest cleansing type person, but it's nice to be able to use a block debuff champion. And because Emic has that cooldown, we're now able to use somebody like Seducer in this role, which I think is really, really cool. Obviously, it gets a little tricky, but if you don't have Seducer, Sepulchre Sentinel is a great option. Also a 2-turn block debuff, right, on a 4-turn cooldown, which now gets reduced to a 3-turn. So champions we wouldn't have been able to use before, we're now able to use. I think that's really awesome. Now, obviously this team you know, we're going to see how well we do, how much damage. It's all poisons pretty much, so it's going to limit our ceiling a little bit. But I think we should do pretty decent, probably 3 key damage. You know, and I think that's a really good result. If we can get 2 key damage, that'd be amazing, considering we're basically just bringing in a bunch of rares onto this team. But anyway, that's the squad. That's what we're doing right now. So you can see it works really well. There's just a little bit of manual if you're using block debuff like I am. I just wanted to show how we could use somebody like a Seducer on this team. But obviously, if you don't want to do that, if you want to use a Doom Priest, it becomes that much easier, right? It then is full auto all the time, right? It's a really good team. This is basically the Tower Skull Crusher team, the slow version of that, the slow war Hellcat team. It's a really nice squad. It's a really nice team, and the beauty of it is, you know, we can use a Sir Nick or a Tower or Warcaster at really slow speeds to make this work. So that's really cool. But let's look at the champions, how I have them set up, so you have an idea of how that's going, and then we'll come back and see how we did. Looking at the champs, let's start with the rare ones that we've got here. I've got Seducer. You notice I did build everybody, try to build them for damage. They don't hit that hard, but I figured, what the heck, why not? We're on the test server. Let's see what these guys can do. But the big thing here is going to be the speeds. I don't care about the defense. I don't care about the HP. I just care about the damage and the speeds. Why is that? Because we're unkillable, so we're not going to die. All I care about is the speeds and the damage. So Seducer's defensive champion, have really high defense, good crit rate, good crit damage. Still doesn't hit crazy hard, but you get the idea with him. We also have Frozen Banshee. She's our poisoner. Obviously, that's the big thing that she's doing in here. The biggest thing with that, making sure we have enough accuracy, trying to get as many counterattacks. You can see with the accessories I have on her, try to get as many extra hits in. Those just mean extra poisons. And that's pretty much all we're looking for here. Now, speed-wise, we have her at 174. The idea is keeping her under 175, right? I want everybody under 175 except for my fast champion, who's going to be coming up next. Grave Chill Killer is our fast champion at 187 speed. This is the speed you want if you're going to bring in a cleanser, somebody like a Doom Priest, ideal for this role. That's who I'm going to be putting in here if I don't have a block debuff champion like Seducer. I do, though, so we're going to bring in our debuffer instead. In Grave Chill, she's going to give us a decreased defense at the top of her turn, so everybody else can benefit from it. And then we have Sir Nicholas. Now, I forgot I have him in a toxic set, which is kind of silly. When it comes right down to it, I don't need it. I have plenty of poisoners on this team, but whatever. That's how I had him built. He is also built for some good damage, and he can hit pretty darn hard. Now, I have him at 172 speed. It's below that 175 threshold, still above 171, and more importantly, faster than Seducer. Seducer in that block debuff role has to be the slowest. Sir Nicholas doesn't. I just need him a little bit faster, and so that's what we did. And then very last, Emic Trunkheart. We've got him in the speed set and immortal gear. I don't know how important that is. It's just what I have him in, quite frankly. Now, his speed, 245 speed, that is kind of what we're aiming for here. And good crit rate, good crit damage. He hits okay, nothing spectacular about him. But that's pretty much what we got going on here. Hey, 37.5 million. That's 2 key damage with just poisoners. That's a pretty good result. Obviously I do have them kind of built for damage, but you know, they don't hit that hard. But you know, that's not too shabby. I'm not disappointed with that result at all. And you can see it works great, full auto. So that's a pretty solid squad. So look, I don't know that this is the perfect team out there, but it's definitely something we can do with Emic. Now, there are a couple little notes you have to be aware of if you're going to try and build this team. One, Emic will not work with that individual, you know, unkillable champion very well, right? If you want to bring in a Skull Crusher, or you want to bring in a, you know, a Bushy, or a Gnarlhorn, or whomever, or a Taurus, right? Someone that puts unkillable on themselves, it's not going to work nearly as well as when you try to build this team with somebody like a Tower, right? Because we're not blocking damage. So it's very hard to regulate the amount of HP these champions have. That actually becomes a really big issue when you're trying to do something like this. So I really don't recommend even attempting that. I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm just saying it's really hard to do, because with Unkillable, if everybody has Unkillable on themselves, or if nobody has Unkillable on themselves but one person, in that last scenario, the clan boss is not going to target the champion with Unkillable unless they have at least 15+% of HP left. And then, of course, they still have to be the one with the lowest amount of HP and the right affinity. It can get really, really tricky. Again, it's possible, I'm sure, but it's going to be hard to manage and make really happen consistently. It's because you need everybody else to heal up more than that 15%, considerably more, and then that one champion who you don't want to be at that 15%. So it can be really, really tricky. That is just something to kind of keep in mind, right? I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm just saying it's going to be really, really hard to do. It's not even something I'm really attempting at this point. Maybe later on in a week or two, I will. If people really want to see that, you can let me know down below if that's something you're actually interested in. I feel like it should be possible, but I've tried these kinds of teams before, and they're really, really hard. That's the biggest thing, right? Obviously, I spent a little bit of time talking about the stun targeting on that first stun with the block debuff from Seducer. The same thing would happen with Sepulchre Sentinel. That's also something you do need to be careful of and be aware of. I don't think it's as much of an issue on Nightmare as it is on Ultra Nightmare, but again, it's something you want to pay attention to. Just check in the calculator, and you're probably going to have to navigate that first stun one way or another, right? So as long as you're aware of those things, I would recommend bringing in Doom Priest if you have a Doom Priest. An excellent champion for Unkillable teams. Gives you an increased attack buff. That's really nice anyway. But makes this really, really easier. You put her in that Grave Chill spot, the fast speed, the 187 speed. It works really, really well. A lot of people have used these kinds of teams for a very long time to really good success. So that is something I would be recommending. Like I said, you can use Demitha, you can use Warcast, you can use Tower, you can use Sir Nicholas, as I showed here, in that role for the stun to make everybody unkillable or block the damage. And that is definitely something I would recommend if you have that option for you. And if you do, you're going to have a pretty easy to make, easy to run 2-key team for Ultra Nightmare and Nightmare. So that's my recommendation for you guys, if you can make that happen. Anyway, that's pretty much it for this video. Obviously, you're going to be able to see this comp on the website. I'll try to put a link to it in the description and the pinned comment of this video so you can check it out. But just make sure to go check out the website, DeadwoodJedi.com, and you'll be able to see not only this team, but a whole bunch of others. And you can play around the calculator to find your own team. Guess who's in the calculator? Emic Trunkheart is in the calculator, so you guys can start playing around as you see fit. Anyway, guys, that's all we got for today. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that notification bell, hit the like button. That always helps. Leave a question down below if you have one, or if you have another comp you want me to work on, let me know that as well, and I'll try and get to that. That's all we got for today, guys. Till next we meet, I'm the Deadwood Jedi.